This is a special report short. Roll the clip.
Is a set of standards that when there are the inevitable conflicts, those conflicts can be resolved in an with equanimity, with justice, and with equity. That's what law is about.
Mm. You know, when we talk about things such as civil rights and human rights that were big topics, like back in the 50s and 60s, leading up to the some of the marches that King did, how did that get subverted by the homosexual agenda?
Well, you have to understand, from my perspective, having lived through it and been in college by the time it finished up in the early 60s, mid 60s, the civil rights thing was more something for the soul of the country than it was for black people. Black people have a problem with always asking for something and never demanding, always begging for something and never being able to deliver, always praying for something and never being prepared to secure the thing they seek themselves. So when the civil rights era was presented, it basically resolved down into a bunch of black folk and some of their sycophantic supporters who were white being out on their knees praying while some redneck beat them across the head until some other quasi-rednecks felt guilty about it. And that's not a struggle. That's just getting your ass whooped. So somewhere along the lines, we set out in getting rid of our shame at not being white and started being black and proud. And then we started moving, and then we got Tricky Dick Nixon in. We forgot that too many black folk did not think they could do anything for themselves and looked at LBJ since he was a Southerner and a pretty decent man when it came to things. Probably the most decent president we've had when it comes to us. Well, when he did not run to keep from disrupting the country anymore behind Vietnam, people gave up hope and they thought they didn't have a big white daddy in the big house, the White House anymore. And you got Tricky Dick Nixon in. J. Edgar, who was, turns out history reveals now, had black in him, a lot of it, and hated what he was and his people. And he was homosexual. He hated straight folk. Then we got the media taken over by the gay crowd. And they started off on a 50-year campaign to glorify our dysfunction. So we started gravitating toward that as something to ideate for rather than doing what we needed to do as a people to get ahead. So in the intervening 50 years since the late 60s and now, we have devolved and gone downhill where we're all about hedonistic nonsense. We forgot the protocols of mannerability. We have glorified the gang banger, who basically is an unmanly lesbian in a boy's body.
Yes.
We have glorified drugs, glorified pimping, glorified stealing, glorified everything, and that's our ideation. Yay, man, it's about pimping, dog. You know, see, we, man, you know, like we moving plenty merchandise, man. Got lots of cheddar to be made, gold to be won, and ladies to be played, man. Yo, see, we are getting off into stupid. We don't have any black leaders getting killed because we have none anymore. We have ersatz rap stars who get killed, and basically we ideate about them being heroes, but essentially, even though some of them try, most of them are just spreading entertainment that fosters dysfunction. So we go to church all the time, but the church is too busy taking all of our money through tithes and donations to leave any for economic investment, and the church pacifies us so we can take one more week of hell rather than getting fed up enough to do something about it. And every time we had a meeting over the last 50 years, it's been in somebody's church where there are 15 chicken-eating preachers who are sitting up there trying to impress everybody to come to their church so they can put money in their complexion plates and they can get an upgraded car or a fur coat for the wife. and some jewelry for bling for some of their mistresses. The boys and girls they're screwing. And what happens is we get caught up in a pimp game, we get caught up in a con game, we get worked. The Democratic Party runs the plantation, they get our votes and they turn over the effect of our votes to the rainbow, and there's no pot of gold at the end of the damn thing, just oblivion and extinction.
Yes.
So we are screwed until we decide we're going to be men and women. We ideate about the real leaders that's in the penitentiary. No, they're not. They're not in there for playing Robin Hood. They're in there for selling poison to their people. They're in there for raping their women. They're in there for gangsterizing their neighborhoods. They're in there for robbing their old folk and their young folk and their businesses. They're in there for burglarizing their neighbors' homes. They aren't in there for good stuff, and the only way they'll do any damn thing is to become men. And when they get out, which is a hard thing, so they get off of this death wish of, yo, man, I'm 23, I ain't gonna see 24, man. I ain't got no daylight at the end of my tunnel, man. Like, hell, what you worried about daylight at the end of your damn tunnel? Be a man, and there are people that you have to get to the end of the damn tunnel and fight the high fire-breathing Gila monsters that are setting fire to the damn thing that's causing all the smoke that obscures the end of the damn tunnel. And even if you don't get through, you should glorify the opportunity of helping your people get there.
Yes.
See, we don't even think right. We don't have any men in the neighborhood. We don't have any men in the household. And they keep putting all this girl mess in these boys' heads. Oh, it's about your emotions. Oh, it's all what you want to be. You know, I ain't got no time for that, girl. Good gracious. What the hell?
Yes.
And they're using black folk as goddamn guinea pigs to run this crazy rainbow experiment on the whole country.
Yes.
All of the above
And
is
the
true.
People's Republic of China is getting ahead of us in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, computers, every goddamn thing, industry. I got one of these new iPhone X's, and one of the first they had out, and when I ordered the damn thing, they gave you a tracker as to where your phone is once you ordered it. And I'm looking at this damn thing, and you know where the point of origin was for the cell phone, the iPhone X? It was inside the People's Republic of China. It made 2 stops before it got the hell out of the People's Republic of China. Then it got to the United States of America. So this high tech that I'm talking to you on, we didn't even make it. The Chinese did. You ever check out Star Trek?
Yes.
You know, beam me aboard, Scotty.
Right.
Well, goddamn it, the Chinese did it in the last 18 months. They actually beamed matter from the surface of the planet from one of their laboratories to a damn satellite and then beamed it back. And then, oh, wow. And then warp factor 1, Mr. Sulu, you know. Well, guess what? Scientifically and by physics, you can have a warp drive. And guess what the Chinese did? They proved the point and set up a miniature one on a small subatomic level and proved it. The United States was a little later, and some of our scientists backed up. You can make a warp field.
Wow.
And they are ahead of us. They got the most powerful computers in the world. They have 1,300,000,000 people. We only have 300-some million. But they make everybody go to college if they can. Otherwise, you work in a damn rice paddy. And you know how bad a real Asian rice paddy smells? They use human excrement as fertilizer. So you're walking around up to your knees in human shit and piss. Or you got a choice of going to college. Now, what the hell do you think you're going to do? Meanwhile, over here, nobody can afford to go.
Right.
And they have such lousy primary schools and secondary high schools and junior high schools with nothing in there that they need to do. And it's gone to hell. Right here in Memphis, for the last 4 days, they have had the Wi-Fi in half the town out. People can't use their computers, so downtown is basically closed down because they have no computer access. So what the hell? When I started off computer. And now what do they do in the school? They said children don't need to learn how to write longhand because no one uses it. Everyone relies upon their cell phones and their computers. And now the damn things are down. And people down there telling me that they have folk in their office they can't write to give them a memo about something.
Oh my gosh.
This is sick.
You know, it's funny.
And we are the damn guinea pigs for this sick experiment of being nice.
Dang.
And one thing, if you want to see about taking care of business, I'd recommend you go see John Wick the Third. Or War. Parabellum. Yeah, that's some untrammeled violence, and it's some real gun type play in there. And there's some videos out there, Keanu Reeves. Also, Brother Isaiah Washington out on a range training with carbines and pistols, and they can work those things. So you see what you have to do to really be proficient if it hits the fan. And answering the question from the 1960s, brother, are you ready for the revolution? And we aren't anymore.
Right.
We don't have any Black Panthers. We got little fools running around switching it up there at D.C. at Howard University and down at Morehouse in Atlanta. Now about it, ready for the revolution. We got people, oh my God, they're talking about guns. Oh. They forgot all about Mao saying power grows out of the barrel of a gun. The police shooting us down. We demand that somebody get them to stop. Hell, stop them your damn self.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is on every fake church? Howard University, of which I am a graduate.
I'll back you up on that. My father's a graduate of Howard undergrad and Howard Law. Go ahead.
And I'm not allowed to come to Howard University to talk to their students.
Why?
Huh?
Why are you
There's no way. Because I came up when Howard University was Howard University. In other words, when the head of the civil rights movement was truly there at Howard University, you see. And so those people like Frank Reeves, Herb Reeves, those people that were there when I was there as professors are not allowed to bring back that kind of tradition to the students.
Wow. They subverted it. They subverted the movement there.
Yeah, right.
Well, I used to, a lawyer, they used to have me go over to the maximum security federal penitentiary once every 6 months, 25 years ago and 20 years ago, to lecture to these students, not students, these inmates over there about manhood and the game that's getting run on them by them committing crimes and what utility they serve. The warden had me over there to the state penitentiary, the federal maximum security penitentiary, and now they won't even let me come near the damn place.
That's what I'm saying. They won't let me come near it either.
I hear what you're saying. You got something that might be effective. They don't want you saying it, but it submerges their little rainbow crap.
That's it. That's it.
They're right to do what they want to do in their bedroom, but I keep saying it. When they start trying to bring it into our bedroom, that's a whole different question.
But it's a whole different story.
It's a whole different story. Orwell's Animal Farm, where all the animals in the barnyard were equal, except the pigs were more equal. Well, apparently these pigs got a rainbow flag on, and they're more equal than anybody else, so they get to say and do any damn thing they want. Nobody's supposed to critique them back and say, oh, hell no, that's wrong. And see, they don't get it. When they start intervening in the political and socio-economic process, they become as subject to harsh criticism as Trump, sailboat Hillary, or Jay Biden. He's a gay boy. And I was just talking to a brother. Were you on with me when we were talking to the brother that went to Harvard and Yale?
Dr. Short, Dr. Randy Short.
Dr. Short, he was talking about how gay Obama was, and the scandal that came up about he couldn't keep his hands off the white boys when he was on ball review.
Yeah.
And how he used to go around talking about how he hated American blacks, yeah.
Yeah, well,
He got in.
yeah, right. Well, that's what happened. I mean, I know the whole story around Obama. You know, I mean,
Fraud.
right? You know, I know the whole story on that.
Can you share
So,
a little bit, Brother Maddox?
well, you know, the thing about it, you know, there's some things I'm trying to really find out right now. But I will talk about it in terms of raising a question, not and giving a provide an answer. You see, I personally felt like Obama had a relationship with Maynard Jackson. Okay? And I personally felt as though Obama was taught by Maynard in terms of his delivery. And the reason I say that is because, you see, I knew Maynard when he wasn't Maynard. Okay? And see, Maynard really got started, as far as I know, Maynard, in his challenge to the Talmadge dynasty. See, Herman Talmadge was a senator from Georgia, and then you had Herman Talmadge also, the father. You know, they were also from Georgia, so they had a dynasty going on. And so when Maynard got ready to run for office, you know, he said, I'm going to challenge the Talmadge dynasty. Well, fortunately, I heard Maynard when he made the statement, and I said to my father, who felt the same way at the time, because he grew up under the Talmadge dynasty, you know how Herman Talmadge was. And he said, you know, he should count me in too, because one thing the Talmadge left the impression of black folks, my father's age is that, you know, Negroes absolutely should not be given any power at all, you know, to keep the nigga down. That was Talmadge true wording. Keep the nigga down. And so my father, all the old folks really understood that very well who Talmadge was.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, they understood who Talmadge was. So, you know, my father was not a little man. You know, he still understood that. You know, so when we were sitting in his home that day, when that man came up and said, keep that nigga down. I mean, so my father heard that. And so he said, well, let's go. So we live about 30 miles from Atlanta. And so my father said, Junior, let's go. And so we jumped in the car, and man was up there at Emory University at the poverty center, because he was a poverty lawyer. And so we went on up there and we said, count us in. Obviously, because at that point, you know, anything was better than Herman Talmadge. So we started the Maynard movement, and actually we were very successful, because it's true that when you go back to his history, that the place called Newnan County, Georgia, was the difference in terms of putting Maynard at the 1968 Democratic Convention. And when Maynard got to the Democratic Convention, you know, he's such a great speaker that, you know, he did his thing, and Dean Bond did his thing, and all of that. And all that came out of Reverend A.D. King, not Reverend Martin Luther King. See, A.D. was a brother of Martin Luther. And so A.D. King was very much important to us in Newnan, because he was pastor of the Mount Vernon Baptist Church in Newnan, Georgia. And at that particular time, we had a sheriff in Coyote County named Lamar Potts. And Lamar Potts hated the Klan. And in fact, the Klan been not walking his county. One time they did come in their county. He heard about it, as his brother gave his peace shooter, and his brother gave his peace shooter, and beat the stew out of the Klan and told them they better not never come in Coyote County again. So that was really my real orientation to the movement, you know, from that perspective. But a lot of that was from Reverend A.D. King
is going and shaping up for this next political cycle, as far as the presidential race is concerned, who do both of you gentlemen see as a viable prospect versus Trump?
Well, I don't think that Trump is going to be a problem. I mean, I'll be honest with you. So it's hard for me to tell black people that as their mama because everybody think that Trump is going to be a problem. But see, Trump is going to be turned out to be what is called a blue-eyed soul brother. Okay? And so that's going to be a whole different ball game. So I don't want to necessarily discuss that because I think we have to all sit down so people understand what this really means. This is a very critical election. But I don't think that people are going to agree with it right now because a lot of people think it's Trump against whoever. But Trump is going to do something else. You got to realize one thing. Nobody knows who Donald Trump's mother is. And that's critical. See, we don't know what Fred Trump did. And we don't know why Donald Trump doesn't have a mother. So I think we have to resolve that first before we start arguing anything.
I thought, wow.
Well, let me say this. Over the years, I've talked to a number of black businessmen around the country, and they tell me that they were trying to get their businesses together, and they couldn't get the loans they needed, and somebody directed them to Trump. And they tell this interesting story. I can't verify it, but the stories are consistent, and what it is this. They got the loans they needed from Trump. He gave them a term loan, and they were supposed to pay it back on a date certain with a certain amount of interest. So he required that they meet him at one of his establishments around the country or in New York, and they all tell this story of they showed up with the check, and he said, "Is this what I told you to pay me back?" He said, "Yes, sir, it is." I said, "You got it?" I said, "When was it due?" "Well, it's due tomorrow, so it's early." And then they said they were astonished, each of them, when he tore their checks up and says, "You don't owe me anything. You did what you said you're going to do. That's all I required of you." And see, what I'm looking at is in spite of this rhetoric from these bastards in the Democratic Party that have sold us out for the rainbow,
Yes.
the lowest black unemployment rate in the last 51 years is right now. On executive order, the most money sent to historically black colleges and universities is by Trump's executive orders right now.
Wow.
See, people don't want to talk about that because they are into this propaganda. They want to understand. Google Joseph Goebbels, Goebbels, the Nazi chief minister of propaganda. And he studied the American movie industry and the American press, and he had Hitler deduced how to run a propaganda engine. He said, "We depend upon the lie. You tell a lie once, it's a lie. You tell it 1,000 times, it becomes the truth. Remembering that, tell a lie long enough and loud enough, and you can get anyone to believe it." Further, he said, "The state or the movement that depends upon the lie must understand that the truth is its absolute enemy, and at all cost and by any means available, we must or you must suppress the truth, because the truth exposes the lie to the glare of a bright light." And that's exactly what they've been doing, this propaganda they've been spreading around us for the last 50 years. We had not a black American up in there in the office. We had somebody that was raised in Indonesia, that speaks fluent Indonesian, whose black ancestry directly was from Kenya, and he got abandoned by that because his mama went off and left the guy. And on her mother's instigation, married Lolo Sotoro, who turns out, when he died, to have been one of the 10, 15 richest men on earth, who ran the 4th largest oil concern on the planet. And he made Barack, well, his actual name officially is Barry Sotoro, once his daddy adopted him before he got 2 years old. He is one of the 1/3, he is one of the 3 primary beneficiaries to the trust fund that contains everything from one of the world's richest men. And Trump, you see what they released on Trump from the New York Times, who got a hold of a bootleg copy of his tax returns. They showed he claimed a net of about $43 million and $37 million before that. He's a millionaire, but you know people take out deductions and everything else.
Yes.
Obama for 2017 had a reported income net of over $200 million after taxes and all deductions.
Wow.
Now just get that. That's the richest fool that's been up in the office. He didn't grow up in the cities of the United States. He spent most of his time in a rich folks compound with multiple bungalows, mansions, and parks where his rich daddy entertained, amongst other things, their close family friends, the Bushes.
Wow.
Yep.
And we sit up there and talk about, we got a black man in office. Well, who the hell is he related to that's American black? Nobody. If we got reparations, he wouldn't qualify because he doesn't have any black American ancestors.
No, he doesn't have a mindset.
Grew up in Hawaii, he was the only, and then he got a problem because he's gay. That's his business, but he slipped in, snuck in. He went to LA when he was running for his second term. They raised $8.5 million for him at one dinner in LA. He tied up the whole city for 3 days because he's never been through America, and what he was doing in all the big cities is getting a ground tour at 30 miles an hour instead of taking a damn helicopter back. He had to LA International Airport for 8 damn hours because he wanted to take a tour of the place. I was out there at the time, and he had LA gridlock for 3 damn days because he wanted to take a damn tour.
Yep. Well, let me say this real quick. See, I've known Donald Trump since the 70s. Now, I was a third law student at the University of Georgia Law School, and the dean, Lindsey Cowan, said that I was a disgrace to the Negro race, and that I would never be practicing law ever again. Well, I would not practice law. I would never be a lawyer. And so he said that I was through. President of the United States. And you can ask Reverend Fred Massey that. And Reverend Massey, and everybody was shocked, for me to say that he's going to be the 45th president. I said, but that's where it's going to happen. And so, the rest is history. That's why I really think that a real conversation that we need to have should start with Fred Massey and Galbraith A&M Zion Church, because I think it would have some real meaning to what Donald Trump is, and then people begin to understand that this man is not going to be the problem that we think he is. But you have to go to the root of the problem, and you have to go to the root of the prophecy for people to understand things. So that's really why I don't get too involved with a lot of discussion at this point, because we have really come together to make an intelligent discussion before things go haywire.
Agreed. We have to stop with this division. I believe us, as melanated men and women in North America, lack the time to keep being the individuals we are. Politically, I'm speaking merely politically. It's time for us to get on one accord, and hopefully it's an accord of prosperity, an accord of business, and an accord of justice, because nobody wants to live in no situation where my mom or my dad can't walk out their house and get the doggone newspaper without somebody hurting them or accosting them. So it's time for us to get serious about liberation, but not liberation to where it's domination, liberation to where we're free to prosper in the society.
Right. That's it. And that's why I said, I think for me it'd be a little premature for me to say a whole lot beyond what I've said, because people won't understand it. I know that, because I know our people. I live with our people all our lives. I've known nothing but us from the time that I was born. I've been with us.
Now, would you tell? I'm sorry for cutting you off, but would you tell the listeners, because there's a lot of young people in this chat room here, what are some of the famous cases you worked on, Brother Maddox?
Well, some of the famous cases I worked on was in the area of self-determination. Because see, I'm a fan of Malcolm X, and Malcolm X was Malcolm X's father was from Reynolds, Georgia, and so I really wanted to be Malcolm. So I read everything that was said about him, and then I went to Reynolds, Georgia, to get an understanding of Malcolm X's Malcolm X's father, Mr. Little, who was in Michigan at the time. I had been born in Michigan, but my mother had said that she was taking me out of Michigan because she wanted me to become a man. And so we moved back to the Jim Crow South. And she said that's the only place a man can become a man, is being raised in the Jim Crow South. And so that was her position, very much so. And to a large extent, my mother was a quiet Garveyite. And I say quiet Garveyite because we talk about the Jim Crow South. So you could be running around up in my race saying that at that particular time. You know what I mean? But my mother was Missouri who said, well, I'm going to sponsor Clarence Thomas. And so instead of me
was that disgraceful? That was disgraceful.
Yeah. So that's where I've been on my side. So I'm just gonna give you a little history what my mother said is all in print, and she said, because Jordan Robinson and my mother was classmates. That's a fact. And at Fort Valley State Teachers College in Fort Valley, Georgia. And so from that's been my birth since then, because my mother did not try to stop me in any way from participating in civil rights. She did not stop me from advocating for black people. I did in a small town in Georgia, and I grew up there, and my mother did not flinch once to say, caution me about doing something other than what I was doing. So that's all I can tell you about my history.
Wow. Thank you, Alton, seriously, for putting your life
very good
on the line. That is a demonstration of what the judge was talking about. Alton didn't know he was going to make it through Jim Crow down there not being lynched or killed or whatever, but he was an alpha man that stood up for the righteous cause. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Well, I want to say that because, see, a lot of times our people got to understand, our people have prophecies also. You see, and what we got to do is make sure these prophecies come alive. Because you see, I went to school in rural South, and my mother was a teacher at Harrison, Georgia, and I was going to school at Rising Star Elementary School. And Rising Star Elementary School, one of those typical schools back then, where everything was wooden frame and old, and you basically had a schoolhouse. You had a Masonic lodge, and you had a church. Those were the three areas of where we grew up in. You see, where we were educated in those places. And I remember Miss Johnson telling me at Rising Star Elementary School, it came right after Brown versus Board of Education, and I was a tremendous reader, and so I knew a lot myself. And so Miss Johnson said to the class, she said, Alton Maddox is going to become a governor of Georgia. And I said, a governor of Georgia? It was hard for me to believe that. I said, I know we got understandable, we got Lester Maddox, all these people, and she telling me I'm becoming governor of Georgia. I just couldn't see it at that point. But you see, as Stacey Abrams ran for office in Georgia, and Stacey Abrams ran a great race, but she didn't win. And I then said to myself, Miss Johnson may have gotten it right. Because you see, I'm here in New York, but she said Alton Maddox is going to be the next governor of Georgia. And I'm saying to myself, well, how the world can that be? It's even worse. I'm in New York. So then Stacey Abrams, she ran a great race, but you see, Stacey Abrams did not have the culture of University of Georgia. You see, it's University of Georgia or the culture of Georgia. You see, Stacey Abrams went to Spelman, and then she went to she went to Yale, and then she went to Spelman. But see, that's just the reverse of the way you win in Georgia. And so what happened was, I went to Howard University, and also after that went to University of Georgia Law School. So that put me in a better situation to become the governor of Georgia than Stacey Abrams became of what she was doing. So, we're talking about now a period in which I will be going back to Georgia, only because I asked Christopher Ray, the FBI director. I wrote him down and said, wait a minute, people need to know who I really am. Because a lot of these people, students now, were law students then, and they're very influential now.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I'm waiting on Christopher Ray to give me a report on what he said, because I know if he hook me up with the students at the University of Georgia, now they'll say Alton Maddox was ahead of his time. You know, that's what they would say, because that's what the late George Busby said. He became the governor of Georgia, and he told a friend of mine, he said Alton Maddox was ahead of his time. He said we didn't know it, we couldn't appreciate it, but this man was ahead of his time. And so that's where we are now.
Wow. I have a question, and feel free, either one of you, to answer it, about the abortion bills that are being passed in various states, including my state of Missouri, is looking at making it harder for young ladies who've been victims of not sodomy, but rape or incest, to deal with that. What is your opinions on that?
Well, that's a good question. You see, I have a syllabus, and what I've done, I've written I've written President Trump on my own views, and so I have put those views in the Presidential Records Act of 1976. And so I've written to President Trump and told him to record all those records under 1976. Now, what I wrote to him and said, look, this is what you should deal with abortion. You should let, or you should let that be 4 horsemen. And that was after Justice Kennedy took leave of things, you know, and so I said, well, look, everybody says Justice Kennedy gonna be the dividing vote. I said, look, President Trump, and this is recorded in the President's Record Act. I said, what you should do is let there be 4 horsemen, because that's basically what was Supreme Court term. And I said, and then you should let there be another 4 horsemen, and you should ultimately let women decide their own fate. You know, I said, let women make that decision about who they are, and let these women have understanding of women issues. And so then I put in there, that a friend, she might be a friend of yours, but anyway, I put Judge Judy. I said, Judge Judy.
She's not a friend. 4'6" tall.
Well, that's why I said I'm not.
Judge problem with Napoleon.
Judge Brown.
Sir.
All right, I have never met Judge Judy. Okay.
I am.
All right, I have. All right, so that's why I said I'm just saying what I did. All right, I put in there that he should have 4 women and 4 others, and that it should be ultimately let him decide that. Now, what I did do, and this is a matter of prophecy, I wrote Judge. It's early in the morning for me, so I'm sort of trying to get my thoughts together. But I wrote Donald Trump, and I said, look, I said the reason why I'm dealing with Judge Judy for this reason. See, we're all from New York, Donald Trump, and I said there are 3 justices or judges who never made it out of their league. In other words, out of the lower court that they were in. And I said they were Bruce Wright, and I said with Irving Younger, and I said with Judge Judy. And I said the reason why those 3 did not make it out of their league is because Judge Wright, Bruce Wright, good friend of mine, he's the only person who told his son Keith Wright, he's the only person I want to have my funeral. I'm going to serve as Alton Maddox. He said, rest of the people in New York, I don't want them nowhere near me. So Keith came to me and said, Judge Wright said, my father said he wants you there. Now, Irving Younger was a tremendous person who professor, but he never became more than a lower court because of one key issue: ethics. And that was the whole thing about Bruce, and that was the whole thing about Judge Bruce, that woman I would tell you about.
Judy.
Right, they all had ethics, and that was the one thing they all had. That's why they didn't get beyond that. And so I told President Kennedy, not Kennedy, I told President Trump, I said those three people, and that's see, I have a record. My hometown newspaper is the New York Times Herald. That's where I'm from, New Georgia. And so I'll always be able to get whatever I wanted to print in there. They would print anything about what I wanted to say. They were not concerned about my views or anything. They would print. And so that's been my papers. Now, if you can go to the New York Times Herald, you see all that in the New York Times Herald. Everything that I'm talking about is right there in the New York Times Herald. And so that's always been what I've been about, and it's always been my prophecy. And I've said, I just told people, look, if you want to know who I am, go to the New York Times Herald, New Georgia. And so that's and you see everything. So all you gotta do is just go to the New York Times Herald. Say we want to get everything automatically said on anything to President Trump. And what I did, one of the great articles, I wrote a big editorial in the New York Times Herald where I said, make Newland great again. And I put in there what I thought was important for President Trump to follow to become a great president. And I could make Newland great again. And people can call the New York Times Herald and say, look, we want to get a copy of that, and you see it for yourself. So basically what I'm trying to say is, whatever my views are, they already expressed. They already in writing way beforehand. So I can't change my views. Those are my views.
And why would you want to? Why would you
Well,
want to?
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I can't change my views. That's my point. I can't change my views. They already been written.
That's almost biblical. For it's been written.
Well, mine are changeable. I never believe in anything. I just have opinions that are subject to modification upon acquisition of better information, data, and analysis.
Right.
And it's the results of experimentations.
And that's the reason why I say I thought we should, what we know now, we should start right there.
I had a science major first. I never wanted to be a lawyer, let alone a judge. There were some other things I thought were more relevant, but
I think you went to Lane College. You went to Lane College?
No, I didn't. But
Lamont.
No, I went to UCLA. I didn't.
Okay.
I went undergrad and law school.
Okay.
But Lane College, my connection with that place is one of my great grandmothers donated 1/3 of the land they're built on. My grandfather was the faculty physician.
Right.
A great aunt was the head librarian. My mother taught library science on their faculty. And
right.
At one point, for a brief while, we stayed with my grandfather, who was Dr. William Dorsey. He lived right on the corner of Lane and Hayes. And my great aunt and great uncle, Biss and Mary Wallach, they lived right next door. So he was Masonic, a Shriner. He was deep into what happened with the black folk and used to run the popcorn concessions at the Black Fair. They had Humboldt County. But that's another thing. Yeah, I got a connection with Lane College, but I didn't go there.
Okay.
Me, I'm always into doing analysis of everything. I try to analyze everything I do rather than just doing what feels right. I try to see what is in it for the people, not just for me.
Right.
So I look at what's going on is we've got a bankrupt system based on a lie right now. It still has done absolutely nothing to cure the cancer that is just
that's true. That's true.
From slavery.
That's true.
But they have abandoned their soul. They've done what Great Britain did 100 years ago. They went nation and got too deep into classism. And Great Britain is now a third-rate empire, and two of its former possessions, India and Pakistan, are much more militarily and economically advanced than they are right now. And the Royal Navy is a joke. They can't even operate 7 ships, and 3 of them are down on anti-pirate patrols off of the East African coast, along with American and French and Soviet and Chinese squadrons fighting pirates. But, you know, it is what it is. We've come a long way, but we've retrogressed a long way. What is it, 3 steps forward and 2 steps back?
Right.
That's what I'm looking at right now in society, and I am very disappointed with black millennials. I am just aghast at them.
Yep.
I'm 70-some years old.
I am 70-some years old as well.
Yeah, we both are, and I get so revolted by a 19-year-old college student ask me, Judge, what should we do? It's really so bad, and why the hell are you asking me? I'm an old man. You should be scaring the hell out of me with how damn militant you are, aggressive, and you act like a bunch of little passive pussies. What's the matter with you?
Right. See, back then we had what we called young Turks, and they were like people who really rebelled against the system.
Well, actually, that came from 100 years ago when there were some young Turks in Turkey who wanted to change things around. That's where the phrase came from.
Right.
Stalin and his boys changed Turkey and tried to bring it into the 20th century. They didn't quite succeed, but they tried. So, you know, it's a phrase, and we need to understand what that means. You know, you can't get up when you're running around being soft and little tight pants and your butt hanging out, you know, or you're running around with earrings in your ear and sissified. You worried about what the latest music is, and you walking around with your earbuds in your ears so you can hear your music and the world has right? It's crazy.
It is disrespectful. And that's some beta male shit. That really is, y'all. And this beta male has gotten us to the point to where we're at. Confused.
Yeah, and it's the bottom line. The ideation is glorifying a beta boy, soy boy, what Arnold Schwarzenegger called them, girly men. And that's the ideation. What the hell's wrong with us? I mean, it's their right to do what they want to do, but if they want to get busted in their booties by somebody, you know, well, that's their thing, or they got a twat and they want to go eat it, that's their thing. But, you know, the rest of us, we're trying to bring the next generation in here and raise it right. We have to do that responsibility because the women, I don't know what the hell's wrong with them. They are taking their primary job. It's like being a mother is an obsolete thing, except for I don't think
black women is a real problem that we see today.
Sisters, learn how to be mothers so you can raise house these people puppies that you have.
That's right. That's it. That's what the problem is. And see, this is the thing, Judge. A group of us gonna have to have access to some of these schools to get these young people back on track. Okay? This is because that's the only way we can save ourselves. You know, through that. And we're gonna have to go back to those schools and try to deal with that, you know. And right now I'm trying to work with some people at TNEC Board of Education up here in New Jersey. And right now got a new man by the name of Christopher Irving. So I have not met him yet. But I'm hoping that I will get a chance to meet Mr. Irving. Because you see, my wife laid certain foundations down that were very important. And I saw my wife and I as having a perfect marriage. And I saw my father and his wife as having a perfect marriage. And you see, my mother, Gil's grandmother, was a woman by the name of Julia Weaver. And Julia Weaver had
what time? What years?
In the 60s.
Yeah, I never.
The Philadelphia Sound. The Philadelphia Sound.
Mm.
All right. Because he was parallel to Barry Gordy.
Wow. So he's just. Was there any particular reason why she wanted to erase him?
Well, because the fact that, like I said before, he pumped up Grandma's daughter, Jessie, who was a fox. But he planted a seed in her, and so by planting that seed in her, Grandma said, "I don't want that son of a bitch,
So the woman was running the family.
Yeah. Well, the Grandma was just like a two-legged bloodhound. I mean, really, if you ever want to see somebody, no, seriously, if you ever want to see somebody who looks like Harriet Tubman, that was Grandma. So she forced she raised my wife. Because she looks like Harriet Tubman. I mean, I've seen her in this. She didn't take nothing from the white folks and nobody else. She just Harriet Tubman. You know what image of Harriet Tubman?
Yes.
That was her. She was she just enough, and then the whole bit. She was just image of Harriet Tubman. And that's why I fell in love with her, because she just reminded me of Harriet Tubman.
The strength and
the strength, and she raised all those children. And they all went, except Jessie, all the rest of them went to Tennessee State, places like that, to college.
How was she able to afford college back then? How was Grandma able to afford college for all those babies back then?
She's a strong woman.
Well, some places the college tuition and incidental fees were on a much more reasonable level than now. Like in California, Illinois, New York, and some other places, a public college was essentially free.
Right. Yep. And she raised her children in Tennessee State.
Yeah, but well, it wasn't Tennessee State; it was Tennessee A&I.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm just saying it wasn't Tennessee
well, that's
State.
what they called it now, but it was Tennessee A&I. And they had a Pabst Blue Ribbon sign out on there, everybody's favorite pub over there by Hadley Park. Yeah, I know it well. First time I saw that thing, I was a child. It was like 1951, something like that.
Right.
And I remember that thing stayed there until I was out of law school and came back through Nashville for a few months before coming to Memphis.
Yep.
This is incredible conversation, gentlemen. You know, when we look at constitutional law and the way it's applied to civil rights in particular, how come there has never really been any reconciliation on the reparation issue?
What is reparations?
Yep.
It should be
That's the question.
land.
Who gets it? No, what is reparations? One, question one. Two, who gets it? Three, how do you determine the class? And four, what are you really talking about giving? Five, if you're talking about being equitable. Six, how does the United States pay for it? Seven, what are you going to do about the fact that the national income is insufficient to pay it?
Wow.
You see, we've got a gross national income that averages out at about $19.6 trillion per year for the last several years. We have reparations. If you gave everybody, let's say, 400K that is identifiably black in this country, you would run up with somewhere around $12.6 trillion. And the United States cannot afford to pay that. So, do you think for number 7 or 8, I forgot where I was, that you can get an appropriations bill through the Congress and the Senate as they are constituted now?
Right.
Looking at the government shutdown and then get it past the veto of an American president And if the veto comes down, would you be able to overcome that with a 2/3 majority in either house? And forget all of the rest of the questions. That last several is a no. You're not going to have that happen. Next thing, what do you want to do? Give everybody a DNA test, which if you gave them an adequate one, could probably resolve who's entitled to it, but you're likely to find that a lot of apparent white people are entitled to it too because they've got as much African through the slave experience ancestry as a lot of people that look black.
Uh-huh. Let me say something about this. I saved the African burial grounds here in New York City. Dave Dickens and a bunch of other Negroes tried to do everything they could to destroy the African burial ground. I saved it. And I saved it through litigation, but after litigation, I called upon my best friend, Gus Savage, Congressman Gus Savage, and I said to him, Congressman Savage, at this particular time, you are in the Public Works Committee. And as a matter of fact, you're the main person in the Public Works Committee. And now, since it has a standstill, I want to invite you to New York City to do the African burial ground. I said, because, you can do it. And so he said, Alton, he said, look, I'll be glad to come. And he said, I got one I got one congressman from Tennessee who owed me a favor. And he said, I will get that congressman and myself to be the committee because that's all we need for the subcommittee is 3 people. And he's from Tennessee and he owed me a favor and I'm going to use that to save the African burial ground. And so he said to me, he said, look, I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to call Dr. John Henry Clark as the witness. He said, now I want Dr. Clark to state his position, and with my vote and the 30 vote from Tennessee, he said that's gonna save it, and that did. And now after that, what happened was the Negroes, when they got to the city council, they did not know anything about Dutch history. And so they did not understand the history of the Dutch and how it had come about. And so as a result of that, they refused to require a $1 trillion trust fund, which they could have done. And I said, out of that $1 trillion trust fund, all that you gotta do is let black folks enjoy it. Whatever they can enjoy out of that $1 trillion. And they refuse to do it. And that's the reason why.
I'm sorry. This is a question from Brother David in the chat room. He's a show contributor. Asks if we are still considered 3/5 of a human on the books. Also, what is the best Latin term to use once in court?
Well, the answer to that is very simple as this. I mean, what term you want to use, that's your own choices. But you see, unless you change the Constitution itself, that's what the Constitution says.
What, we're 3/5 of a human?
Yeah, that's what the Constitution says.
Technically, what the Constitution says is for purposes of apportioning congressmen. The slave population would be counted in total on a 3/5 basis. It did not say that each individual would be counted as 3/5 of a human, but for purposes of securing congressional representation, the slave population would be rated at 3/5 its total number in any given state to assist in the apportionment of congressmen. That has been amended. The amendment has abolished that as part of the Constitution. The Constitution itself is very short, particularly in that provisions in the Constitution itself obsolete certain of its provisions after the date of 1808, which also around about there is when the importation of slaves became illegal.
Right.
So the Constitution is an interesting instrument, and it's a political thing, but it's also got other stuff in there that's quite interesting, and it leaves a lot of wiggle room, and it's like a set of rules for a game of baseball, basketball, or football. The rules are the rules, but what happens and which team wins depends upon the player, and if there's any corruption in the game, other than doing something like throwing the World Series in 1916, well, what happens is that you may have a hometown referee who calls bad calls to give the home team a boost. See, so our problem is not that rule book, the Constitution. Our problem is what happens in terms of its administration. Now, there's one thing, contrary to these bozos on the right wing that get to talking about the original construction of the Constitution and all this other stuff, the very first case decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1792 was, what does common law mean, as cited in the Sixth Amendment, which says, no matter tried upon the common law before a jury shall be heard upon appeal except upon application of the common law. Their decision is interesting. It's two parts. It says the common law is that body of judge-made law based on tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. In other words, that's a direct quote from the decision. So the law evolves. The conditions of society evolve. And it's judge-made law, even though these right-wing bozos like to talk about the anathema of judge-made law. The second part is very interesting. They said all law in the United States is judge-made law until it is superseded by tradition, by legislative fiat, statute, ordinance, or regulation. So until some legislative body sets the law, all law in America is judge-made. And I've made law, like, for example, when you get a murder case or a criminal case or a civil trial, the jury makes the decisions under the direction of the court, but the judge charges the jury with what the law is. Law that's not on the books from the legislative body, but is made up by the judges. I did not like the one in Tennessee on reasonable doubt, so I rewrote it. A defendant grasping for straws who got convicted seized upon that to use as a grounds for an appeal. The Supreme Court noted that Judge Joe Brown, etc., in the 30th Judicial District, did not use the standard charge on reasonable doubt. However, we find that it is superior to the one that has been the standard pattern jury instruction. Therefore, we adopt it as the new pattern jury instruction. This issue is overruled. So that's how you set common law. So I made law for the state. So for the next 27 years, anytime you went to trial, they used what Joe Brown had compounded as determining what reasonable doubt was. Also wrote the one on identification. So you got to have a primary thing there for criminal law. Did you ID the defendant as being the one that committed it? And what is a valid ID? How do you determine that? So they used one of my primitive drafts, and I used to go beyond that and use my final one for it. But you see, that's judge-made law. So we've got this thing where we get back into tradition, precedent, and the evolving conditions of society. And it sure as hell is the case that the society in the United States in 2019 is not what it was in 1792.
Exactly.
That's it. Now, at this particular time, let me say this. As I said before, see, we have to really convene a group and we speak for a while because, everybody has their time and efforts. And, but they all turn into very interesting discussions. But we literally just got to find a time for us. We're going to be dealing with time for anybody else. Certainly I don't deal with time for white people, but I do deal with time for black people. And so everybody should contribute. Somebody should contribute. But in the meantime, we all got to find some way of having a meeting ground, a common ground.
Yeah.
And that's really what this is all about. So I think that the audiences have heard enough to say, you know what, we need to start trying to build to a consensus, and then move from there. Because that's the only thing gonna solve this problem.
Great point. I got one last question. I know we have to go. We're about at that time. This one last question from Brother David. Ask them about, and please excuse this word. I don't speak Latin on a daily basis, but a persona, selfie juris civil terra mortis. Does that make any sense?
It doesn't to me.
To me, but obviously we sit down somewhere, we can sort of hash it through. I'm sure we can speak some pig Latin to get us through this.
I don't know if that was pig Latin. That might be bacterium Latin, because that needs a little more evolution for sure.
See, all of these Latin terms are just shorthand, boilerplate. If you're in the law, you know what it means with your decision.
Yeah,
Race interlocutor, for example. The thing speaks for
itself. Right. That's it.
Stuff like that. That just means, what does it mean by the thing speaks for itself?
Right.
An old case where a guy was walking along a board sidewalk in a Wild West town, and a barrel rolled out of a loft and hit him. Barrels don't roll out of lofts on their own, so that's prima facie evidence. The thing speaks for itself. There was something negligent going on. What's negligent? Failing to exercise due care to ensure that something that is not supposed to happen doesn't happen.
Right.
Yeah. So these things are like common sense. And one of a trial lawyer's job is breaking down the boilerplate into common sense. Like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard the judge charge you, or you will hear the judge charge you with the law relative to this or about this. What does this mean? Well, in layman's terms, it means Robert went upside with his head and who-weed on it, And whether, what went down was enough to justify doing it in for acting like a damn woman. That's what we're here for.
Right, that's what we're here for. Right. Now,
I'll never forget a case I tried where they had a crime called unnatural sex acts that subjected a convicted defendant to 3 to 15 years in the state penitentiary and a big fine. So what are we here for, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? I kid you not. This is what we are here to try this week. The judge is going to tell you we're not playing. What happened was a cop got brought in by this man's ex-wife, and he saw him, he's the client, and the co-defendant, his girlfriend, going down on each other, and they want 3 to 15 years in the state penitentiary for doing 69 nothing. And that is what we're here for.
Right. Well, I think that's a great note. That's a great note to fall in on, because that's tell you everything you need to know about the law. that's what we're here for. I hope that we can really do this again, and we do it in a comprehensive way that we reach a real consensus before this thing get out of whack.
Yes. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up, y'all. I want to thank all the chatters. I want to thank both the judge and the lawyer, Alton Maddox, Judge Joe Brown. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your time with us. Because
everybody have a good day.
This is your time.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you very much. Right.
Peace. Wow, guys. I hope you enjoyed this powerful broadcast today. This is May 21st, 2019, the year of our Lord. This is TPIM SR Live, the only show on YouTube that brings you unique content that you'll find no place on earth. With the live studio audience in tow, we're here to bring the truth and talk about the truth. A couple of things, y'all. couple of things before I end the broadcast here. We have some people coming up that you will not believe. We have some folks. I'm looking at the contact sheet right now. All these folks that I got to contact to get on, like I did with Brother Alton Maddox and Brother Judge Joe Brown today. Now you might not notice. I'm gonna put up some. I'm gonna make like a special screenshot for this video, of course. But I haven't been advertising the folks that have been coming on prior to, for a couple of reasons. One, sometimes it doesn't work out. What happened today, what transpired today, was literally came from a dream I had last night. I dreamed I was going to do this show today, and it manifests. Thank you, Most High. When you roll, and when you do what you're supposed to be doing, where you're not projecting the BS and the buffoonery, but you're trying to express hope and intelligence, then you're on the right path. With that being said, I'm your host, TruePowerIsMine. This has been TPIMSR Live. As always, live your life with integrity, without hate, envy, or greed. And as always, brothers and sisters, let's try to be kinder to each other.